This is the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. Boundaries or burnout, you make the choice. Here's your host, Michael Levitt. Welcome to another episode of the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. It's Michael here, and today I've got an awesome guest. You're really going to be excited to hear about this new service that's coming, and it's going to be a game changer, quite frankly. I've got Marc Sellouk on the line, and he's the president and CEO of Flewber. Marc, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Michael, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Glad to have you here. So the name Flewber might give a hint as to what the service is. And audience, I want you to start thinking about rideshare programs like Lyft and Uber, and really, go back to a time when we didn't have those services. Now we do, and we use them all the time, myself included. For work purposes, I find it easier to use those services than driving to where I'm going, paying for parking, and all of that stuff. So it's a great service. So Marc, tell us about your journey and the company that you've launched and how it's going to completely shake the industry.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Michael, for having me on. And, I've been in business now for a little over 20 years. I used to be in the technology industry. And about a year back, I had an opportunity to sell the company, and it was a successful company, happy to say, and had a great team. And really looking to take the next step in my career. And I've always had a passion for aviation, and took some time off, but really sat down and kind of put together a vision of what can actually work in the marketplace. And I recall when, I used to travel for my technology company. Oftentimes I used to travel New York, Boston, New York, DC. And, an 11 o'clock meeting meant for me an 8 a.m. flight, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going through all the logistical nightmares we also know very well. And, it just didn't make too much sense. And having to get a flight back and changing flights, all in, my meeting lasted about 2 hours, but I'd have to wait a whole day to get back. So that being said, I recall, sort of what Uber did in the marketplace. If you remember years back, you used to see black cars lined up, picking up executives, and Uber came into the marketplace and said, hey, well, why can't we make it like this for everyone? And why can't we, make it efficient, easy to use, stylish, economical, and have an alternative to yellow cars and have people take advantage of a black cars type service? And so they became very successful in the marketplace. We all know who they are today, and probably they've become the predominant way of traveling terrestrially. And so I said to myself, kind of building a parallel, the private jet market we have today, they're catering to the upper echelon of the marketplace. And, with all these annual fees and all these, fancy little, arrangements they have, I was thinking to myself, well, what about all the other folks that travel on commercial aviation daily? There are thousands of people a day that go from, regional type travel, by way of example, since I experienced it myself, New York, Boston, New York, DC, why can't they have that opportunity? And so, I dreamt up a Flewber, and by way of that, the Flewber idea was born. And, we envision bringing what Uber did to the terrestrial marketplace, bringing it to the aerial travel, a way of traveling. And so, similarly, our technology will be app driven. You'll be able to easily book a flight for regional travel. We'll have the ability for a car to pick you up and bring you to the field, and you'll be able to board a flight in that same private type experience, but really leverage an air taxi type business, taking you to your destination comfortably, efficiently, and without going through any of these logistical nightmares that we all know so well. So, we're very excited about it. It's a very innovative approach. And we, like you said, I think it's going to be a game changer.
Completely. And, for somebody like myself that does fly, not as frequently as I used to 20 years ago, but I still go on some short flights and even some, longer ones. It takes time to get through the airport. And like you said, for those business travelers that have a day meeting, it really takes up your day. It's an hour meeting, and the people want to meet you face to face. Now, a lot of people will argue, well, why can't you just do a conference call or a video call or things like that? And anybody that knows anything about business and partnerships and negotiations, nothing beats face to face. Nothing. There's interactions, you see body language, you see a lot of things. You can actually build, a connection with people. And some of the greatest deals ever were made because people got together face to face and hammered out whatever type of negotiations they were able to do. So I don't think flight is going anywhere. I don't think face-to-face meetings are going anywhere. I hope they don't, because with social media, I'm not getting a soapbox here, but with social media, I think we, as a society, we've never been more antisocial than we have since the advent of social media. So with this service, and I know one of the key things is that you want to aim for is you want this accessible to as many people as possible, and how, and without, telling tales and giving away trade secrets, because I want to make sure that we don't do that. It's, what are some strategies from an organization standpoint to keep these costs relatively affordable, but also make sure that your organization is making the money to be able to scale this organization and grow it and expand it, throughout, the U.S. and wherever else you deem to have it.
Great. So, from a consumer perspective, I think it's important to have a price point that's easy to understand, and the ability to book travel in a very easy way. And, from an organizational standpoint, it's important to have the systems in place and the workflows in place and the methodology in place to scale the business. And so that's where experience comes in, right? It's one thing to start a business, and it's another thing to be able to scale a business. And so, when we built the support systems for this company, we built it such that it will support the growth, but also support the by way of example, swivel chairing from one system to another system, right? Where you need bodies, you need to understand workflow. So we've from my past experience and, and some of the folks that are joining me in this venture, we have the ability to take what we've learned and the experiences that we've had and apply it to this concept. And that really helps in terms of, keeping the cost down, in terms of being able to scale the business in a way that from an economical perspective, the margins can be sustained. Excuse me. So we have a great marketing approach to growing the business. Again, we don't want to grow it too fast. We want to grow it smartly. We want to reach the right demographic, and we want to do it in a way where, like I said, we're not catering to the upper echelon of the marketplace. We're catering to the everyday folks that travel out of these major airports, and we feel that with that approach, we'll be able to not only scale the business but attract and provide the right incentives for people to take advantage of this alternative to commercial aviation.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy on it, because again, it's not a situation where people would be expecting that they would be getting Southwest Airlines flights, because it's a completely different ball game here, but it's still going to be affordable. And you also have to factor in, and this is something you and I talked about in the pre-show conversation, is you book that flight and you get there for a 9 a.m. meeting. So you're getting up at 5 a.m. to get to the airport. So from 5 until 8, you're dealing with airport stuff. So there's 3 hours, and then you have your meeting, and then basically you're done. Maybe you have lunch, maybe you don't, there, something like that. But you're looking at, depending on what time the flight goes back to, and again, depending on where you're flying out of and where you're going from to, sometimes there's only a couple flights a day. So, it's like going to Vegas. You kind of roll the dice and see what you're going to get. So you literally could spend, 10 or 12 hours for a 2-hour meeting. And I always tell people when they're trying to figure out, cost of things and all of that and cost to do things, I said, okay, figure out what your hourly rate is. What you make a year, or whether you're an entrepreneur or maybe you're salaried or something like that. Figure out what your hourly rate is, and then say, okay, I'm going to take the 10 hours that I completely lose because I'm screwing around with airport crap, and multiply that by the time, and you'll see the amount, and you'll go, whoa, and you'll say, okay, yeah, this is definitely affordable to be able to do this, because then that way I can be on a flight, let's say at noon, back home by 1, depending on, the distance, of course. And then you've got the whole afternoon. You didn't have to book a hotel. You didn't have to do anything else. You just pop in, pop out. And like I said, this is a game changer, being able to access this type of service, more so than, what it's been there. Because, we know that there's been private air travel for years. And as you've alluded to on a couple occasions, the consumer has been kind of forgotten about that, because it's been limited to, those that can really afford it, where things, okay, you want to fly to San Diego and you're in Chicago, a private jet out that way is going to cost you a lot. But again, you got to factor in the cost of how much time you're spending, the airport, everything else. So just to kind of give some people some insight, because some people may not be aware of private air travel and what it's like, what the experience would be like. So if you can share with the audience a little bit about that, so they can kind of get an understanding how it's so dramatically different than a commercial air experience.
Right. And so, that's very well said, but what I'll do one better, and I'll give you the experience that you'll actually have with Flewber. And so here you are ready to book a flight. You want to leave, in 24 hours. You hopefully you'll have the app downloaded on your phone already. You open the app up, you put in your origination, your destination, you select your departure time. And then our app is actually connected to terrestrial transfers. So you'll be able to reserve a car to actually pick you up and bring you to the airfield, right? And so these are not major airports. They're tier 2 airports, so they're a lot easier to navigate. And so say you book a 7 a.m. flight. Well, you can reserve a car to pick you up at 6 a.m., right? As long as you're at the airfield 15 minutes before departure, we're good. So you get to the airfield, you come into a very nice terminal, have a latte, pick up a newspaper, walk over to your aircraft, hop on the plane, sit comfortably, extend your legs all the way out, lay back if you like, and within an hour you'll be at your destination. And so, that type of experience, when you talk about private, it's not we're not trying to, pick you up with a Rolls Royce and give you that type of experience. We're trying to build an alternative to commercial aviation that's going to make day-to-day travel a lot better. And it's not necessarily more fancy. It's definitely a first-class approach, right? As I said, similar to what Uber is doing and what they did with their app and the type of cars they pick you up in. And so that's the type of experience that we're going to offer. And it saves time. It's hassle-free. You're working with human beings, and you're in an environment that really is going to be more of a stress reliever. And so that's the type of experience that you'll have with Flewber. And I think people will realize how much more pleasant that is in comparison to what they used to do. And we believe that this is going to be very hopefully it'll be very contagious.
I anticipate it will be, because again, with the rideshare programs like Uber and Lyft, They started off with the concept. They made it extremely simple and easy for people to access it. It's literally downloading an app. For me, it takes me longer to get to the door than it does for me to order a ride. So I purposely go, don't order it until you get to the door, because there's been a couple times where like, I'm here, and like, oh crap, so it's one of those things where people were accustomed to that because they were tired of the other methods that were available, and it wasn't consistent. The fees weren't consistent, you name it. There was all kinds of hiccups that people encountered over time, and they saw a need. And I think that's your entrepreneurial spirit, and the experience that you've had from starting up organizations and working in corporate and all of those things. You get to take all of those tools and experiences that you've had throughout your career, and you get to use them interchangeably. It's using a Lego analogy. It's like you've got all these cool Legos and you want to put them all together and you make something really unique other than the kit that you bought. If you have a ton of Legos, like I did as a kid, and
right.
Then,
but you need, you constantly look for that piece that you need, and sometimes you look really hard. And so one of the most important things or challenges for me was finding those right pieces and finding the right team. And what we have here is a group that we put together that has the pedigree, not only from an aviation experience standpoint, but also from a business standpoint and from an operational standpoint. And putting these pieces together has enabled us to, in a very short period of time, put together an idea, build on that idea, execute the idea, and now, roll out the idea. And while it sounds nice, it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's all about the people. And you're only as good as your team. And I think that we have a great team. I've always been a believer in a good team. And some of my folks in my previous company are actually, as I said, joining me in this venture. And it really is, it makes a huge difference when you have that type of following. But to have that following, I guess you kind of have to earn it. And so, I've been blessed and lucky enough to have that.
Yeah, when you build a great team, and when you go to a new organization or launch a new organization, and you have those key people that you've worked with in the past that know how you work and how they work, it cuts through so much of the startup stuff. And I know, because I've been in part of many startups, both personally and with other organizations, and there are some that really look like a toddler learning how to walk the first time. They're stumbling all around, they're fumbling and things like that. And every startup has those experiences. But when you've got a strong team and everybody's on the same page, and you've got, using a music analogy, you've basically, sounds like, built a super group. You've got this awesome group of people that individually did all great things in their own organizations and their own careers and everything like that. And you've taken each of these all-stars and you put them all together, and it's just going to create this organization that's going to really change the game. And more than, pardon the pun, this is going to sound funny, I'm Flewber excited about this, because, and you feel free to use that. That's it's a play on words, but for me, and I know a lot of people that travel a lot, and having this option available to them, I know people are going to take up on it, because it's just going to save them so much time, and they're going to get so much more done because they don't have to stand in a line, take off their shoes and their belt and everything else.
And you know what? I am so, as a pilot myself, I've accomplished, some of the things with my passion, becoming a pilot and flying often. But more importantly, I'm so passionate about this, and I believe in this so much. One of my colleagues who's joining me on this venture, he basically turned around and he says to me, "I don't have to hear any more about it. I'm holding on to your shirt because I see what's in your eyes." And, to hear that, while it's, I'm humbled to hear something like that. But really, I'm working for them. We work for each other. No one works for anyone here. It's a team effort. That is so important, because if you see eye to eye with your team and you believe in them and they believe in you, nothing gets in your way. And believe me when I tell you, we've had some major obstacles here, some major challenges, and we overcome them. And I'm sure there'll be more to come. But you have to, stand up straight, hold hands with your team, and nothing gets in your way. And nothing is going to get in our way, because we believe in this. We believe that we're going to innovate the industry, and this is going to be a game changer.
I totally agree, and I'm looking forward to being in the air on one of your flights. So, Marc, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing this awesome new venture that you're launching, and I cannot wait for your success to just be beyond what you can imagine. So where can people find out more about you and this venture and anything else you'd like to share?
Great. So, they can log on to our website. That's Flewber.com, and sign up for updates there. And also follow us on Instagram at Flewber, and on Facebook at Flewber. And, we've embarked on some of our digital campaigns here. So folks will be able to follow us, and in the very near future, be able to download our app and, get in the air with us.
Awesome. And audience, I'll have that information in the show notes. So Marc, thanks again for being on the show today. I appreciate you, and congratulations on this new venture. I cannot wait to see, the app go live and the service available, because I'll be one to download it for sure. So thanks again.
Michael, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Until next time, everybody, be well.
Hey, it's Michael again. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you're like many people, you're dealing with some significant stress and possibly approaching burnout. I know how you feel. In 2009, my burnout led to a year of worst-case scenarios. I do not want that to happen to you. If you go to breakfastleadership.com, you can register for a free webinar on burnout prevention, as well as get a free checklist to have successful mornings. Start off each day the right way. Again, that's at breakfastleadership.com. Also, since you are a loyal podcast listener, I'm asking you to like, rate, and review my podcast on iTunes. I look at all the reviews and appreciate your comments, and it helps other potential listeners discover the content I have on the show. I appreciate you, and thanks again for listening.